Ni hao. Good morning and welcome to the 12th Automotive Logistics China Conference. My name is Louis Yakumi and I'm the publisher of the Automotive Logistics Group. Perhaps I should say quite early is that there will be simultaneous translation for Chinese, Mandarin and for English. So if you need a headset for the translation, please collect it from just outside the room, because there will be presentations in Mandarin and English, and of course the questions can be in Mandarin or English. But it's great to be back in China, the biggest automotive market in the world. That's a great position to be in, but of course it brings many challenges as well. More plants opening, more car launches, more customers in more regions, and more globalization. So we've developed our program this year to look at the issues that will affect the industry in the future. What will be the impact of increasing e-commerce, the move from a transportation to a logistics to a supply chain mentality? How is the tier supplier base developing their logistics and supply chains? And ensuring that the vehicle distribution model is lean, green, and copes with the growth. There is the new Silk Road, as the Chinese automotive industry is more global than ever and links with the rest of the world. And as the industry grows, the Chinese economy demands from big to strong. That means developing robust, sustainable processes, systems and technology to develop the industry for the future. And to help you all reach your goals, you should reach out to our sponsors who have products, technology or knowledge who can help you in the market. Our gold sponsor, Jeffco, our global sponsors, CTM Law and Wallenius Wilhelmsen Logistics, our silver sponsors, AutoLink, BLG Logistics, Chang'an Minsheng Logistics, FedEx, Global Logistics Properties, Goodpack, Inform, Priority Freight, and UTI. But as always, this conference is not just a school lecture, and some of the sessions are being recorded, so you can see them at the end of the conference anyway. So it's not just about listening to the speakers. The conference is for you to interact, to ask questions, to meet each other, to network, and to share information. At the conference, we have over 400 top executives from vehicle makers, from tier suppliers, from government officials, from logistics companies, from associations. So make sure you make the most of your attendance by meeting as many of these people as you can. If you do that, then I'm sure you will have a very valuable 2 days. But straight on to the conference itself, we always try to start every conference by giving you an understanding of the industry and the state of the industry. So once again, we've been very lucky to get opening the conference some great speakers from great organizations, from associations, from the government, from the dealer side, and from analysts. So I think you'll get some very valuable information from the first session that will keep us going through the day, information that will help us develop the sessions and questions for the next 2 days. The conference will be in our usual format, so each presentation or each speaker will make their presentation and we save the questions for the end of the session. Most of the presentations will be made available at the end of the conference, so we will give you a link on the website so you can look there to see. At the end of the conference, you will get the full presentation that you can review again. And as I said, the whole conference, or most of the sessions in the conference, are being recorded, so you can see them again as live. So I'm very pleased to welcome as the first speaker of Automotive Logistics China 2015, from our great partners and friends, and one of the most important associations in China, a great association that does a lot of work for automotive logistics in China, and spreads the word very strongly in China, but also globally. I'd like to welcome Mr. Cai Jin, the Vice President of CFLP, the China Federation of Logistics and Purchasing. Mr. Cai.
各位来宾、女士们、先生们，
Dear guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It is my great pleasure to attend today's Automotive Logistics China Conference. It is the 4th time for me to attend this conference. So here I want to thank especially the organizing committee for giving me so many opportunities to attend the Automotive Logistics Conferences series. Each time I came for the conference, I learned a lot. It's really a rewarding experience because all the delegates and the representatives are really what we call the top executives or leaders of each industry and their spectrum. So during the whole session series, we can hear a lot in terms of their insightful opinions about the current status quo and also the future trends of the growth of the whole industry. So having attended the conference series for several times, I can feel so keenly that this is really a top-notch conference of this kind. All of us, all the participants are experts or top-notch leaders. I myself is a layman, so to speak. So I will offer my opinions from a pure non-expert perspective. So from the automotive logistics perspective, I'm here as a learner, not as an expert. Each time I was requested to talk a little bit about China's macroeconomic growth for CFLP, I mean the China Federation of Logistics and Purchasing. We are working not only on the PMI as an indicator to suggest the future economic prospects in China, we also work on some other indicators. For Q1 this year, some indicators will come out one after another, especially since today onward. You can expect the coming out of some indicators or parameters or indexes. So these macro indicators will deliver its direct impacts upon the future growth of this industry. China has a really good language that can encompass almost all the elements and connotations. For the future economic indicators and the targets, we can have the following few key messages. One is stabilized growth. Secondly, restructuring. Thirdly, transform the modality of growth. Fourthly, to promote the reform. Not to mention to deliver tangible benefits to the livelihood of the ordinary people. So these are the key messages. And for my presentation, I want to primarily focus on the above mentioned few key messages and do some elaborations on how we can fully interpret and understand the essence of these policies from the Chinese government by offering my own opinions, not only from my team, but also from my organization, for the stabilization of economic growth. So whether Chinese economy can sustain its growth. This year, how stable can the Chinese economy be? Our analysis is for Q1, against the downward pressure of economic growth, basically we can maintain its generally upward trend of its growth. So from a static perspective, or if you compare the economic growth compared with the same period of last year, China's economy is still slowing down its speed growth. Some economic indicators all suggest that there has been no change to the trend of economic downturn or slowdown. For example, the PMI index for Q1 is about 49%. That's about 0.5% lower than that of the same year. So that indicated that the manufacturing industry is witnessing the slowdown of its economic growth. For March, and the sales volume improve by about 3.3% and 3.7%. But this figure is really not that high as we have seen last year. So basically, all these figures suggest that the Chinese economy is slowing down gradually. So this is the general prediction. Of course, this is, as I said, from a pure static perspective, but from a dynamic perspective, against the downward pressure, still we maintained a stable growth trend or momentum. On one hand, for PMI index for month one, for January to March, it is actually picking up a little bit. I mean, the February figure is better than January one, and the March figure is a little bit better than February by about 5 percentage points. It is above the critical threshold point already. So the PMI trend of the manufacturing industry suggested that despite the downward pressure, basically the trend is moving upward. Secondly, the market price is turning up. The purchasing price is picking up. The circulation price for mass products or for consumerables is also picking up. This is quite different from Q1 last year, because Q1 last year saw a downturn of this indicator, and also some big companies are also turning for the better. We have a special indicator of PMI index, especially the index relevant mainly to those big companies. The figure is also turning for the better. That means that we have seen that the market demand is incentivized. So the first group of beneficiaries of this impact is the big companies or these large companies. And also, basically speaking, the corporates and the businesses have generally a good prediction for the future growth of our indexes, no matter whether it is relevant to manufacturing or non-manufacturing industry. The so-called expectancy figure or the index is turning for the better. After the coming out of the figure from Q1, we are filled with a little bit confidence, especially since March. The economy began to stabilize a little bit and began to pick up gradually. So for the first half of this year, hopefully our economy can be stabilized at around 7%. So 7% will be achievable figure not only for the first half this year, but also for the whole year in 2015. So if efforts can be done to maintain the GDP growth rate within a certain realm or a range, I think all the key economic targets can be fully reached or fulfilled. I mean 7%. So on one hand, we should not be too pessimistic and do not over-speculate those downward elements for the economic pressure. I mean, for China's growth, there have been some enabling elements or factors to sustain its future growth. We have in our portfolio a toolkit, including all the tools that are needed to ensure its future stable growth. The internally driven driving force is unleashed to level the playground for future growth. So this is one side of the coin. On the other hand, I said another key sentence is to restructure our economy or economic restructuring. I think that restructuring is a mass endeavor that will take years. You can see it more relevantly for the past 2 years. We have begun its restructuring journey for the primary to the tertiary industry, especially for the tertiary industry. that accounts for over 48% or nearly 50% of the total economy. So this year, very likely, the tertiary industry is likely to top 50% of the total economy. So that has become the biggest contributor to economic GDP. So from that perspective, we have seen tangible and rapid progress for the economic restructuring, delivering its positive impacts on the economic growth. This is also a perfect guarantee to ensure we have adequate jobs created to maintain our economic stability, harmonization, and good balance. Secondly, we need to weed out those surplus capacities or these overcapacity issues. Currently, you can see rigorous efforts made into this regard. And it's fair to say that we have fulfilled our target ahead of schedule. You can see it more keenly for the past few years. We have overachieved the targets of eliminating or weeding out those unneeded capacities, especially in the steel industry. We can see that the production capacity can be leashed on a sustainable and a reasonable pace. For the Q1, the crude steel production volume began to display its negative growth. I mean, the production volume is on the decline. So this is actually the first time ever in the history of China's steelmaking industry. Of course, it is some pressure that should be felt by the whole industry, but on the other hand, you can see good results or effects as a result of the restructuring initiative. So what should be reduced have to be reduced. This is very important. Secondly, for the restructuring issue to be a success, we should develop those emerging industries. As I have mentioned, generally we are facing downward pressure. However, the emerging industries have displayed a new growth rate. I want to give you one specific example. The telecom industry or the electronic and telecommunications industry are developing rapidly. To put it more simply, the mobile phones or cell phones everybody's been using is more relevant to our future growth. So for the first quarter of this year, the growth rate is much higher than almost all the major manufacturing industries. That's somewhere around a double-digit growth rate, above 10%. So this is a very rapid progress, serving as a big boost to China's economic development. Why? Because on one hand, it is aligned with our country initiative to restructure our future economy. On monitoring these economic indicators, we found that the PMI index is picking up more rapidly than ever before in the telecom sector. This year, the speed is also much higher than the speed as we have detected last year. The PMI index for that particular industry is over 70%. This is a very big plus to maintain the rapid economic growth in China. So correspondingly, the electronic industries and other relevant and auxiliary industries of the telecom industry can also seek much more rapid progress in the future. Thirdly, as I mentioned, the third key message is to promote our reform or to push forward our ongoing reform. So I suggest all of you to take a closer look at the report on the work of the government delivered by Premier Li Keqiang, in which there is a special paragraph devoted to how we can push forward future reform, including the reforming of the fiscal and financial system, of SOEs, of the investment system, and so on and so forth. I call it 8+1, meaning 8 aspects have been covered in addition to one reform specifically for the circulation area. So altogether 9 areas will see the continuance of our current ongoing reform. That is to say, the dividend of the reform is continuing its deliver its ripple effect across the board.
Fourthly, we're talking about the change of modality of the economic development, meaning we have to change the way in which we develop that economy. This is also very important. To some extent, this endeavor on the change of economic development modalities will exercise a pressure on the industries in the Chinese economy to promote a further restructuring. As a result of the downward pressure in the Chinese economy, the profitability of the companies in China is decreasing, and therefore the businesses in China would have to seek new growth points or areas for higher growth or profitability. And definitely there's only one way out, that is to reduce the cost. We conduct a survey on more than 4,200 companies in China. I think this is a fairly large sampling, and we found as a result of this investigation and survey that the high cost is the main contributors to the decreasing profitability. So definitely the businesses in China would have to pay critical attention to reducing the cost in the future in order to maintain the profitability. And the economic growth model will have to be changed in order to contain the cost. Business operational model will also have to be contained. The companies and businesses in China should no longer seek to expand quantitatively, but instead it has to seek increase and growth in quality of the production. If we're trying to talk about the change of economic growth model for the distribution industries, I think these companies in the distribution industries would have to reduce the inventories, would have to change the business operational models. In this way, I would like to say that the distribution industry should be the leading industry in China that will take the lead in the endeavor to change the economic growth model. And this is something each and every experts in this room have to give serious consideration to. The change of economic growth model is paying higher and higher attention by the entrepreneurs and government officials. And a significant change in the distribution industries in China is surely expected. So to stabilize the growth rate, restructuring, change economic growth models, and promote reform, they played critical roles in the economic development in China in the past 2 years. And I would like to point out that the change of the economic growth model will definitely promote the transformation of the distribution industry in China. This is our mission, and this is something you have to do. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Tsai Jin. Very interesting presentation to begin with, reminding us that there are still some great opportunities in China. There is still growth to look forward to, but it has to be done in the correct way. Mr. Tsai Jin was very modest at the beginning, saying that he is just a layman, but I think we all know he is one of the top logistics experts in China, so we really value his opinions. And next up to give the presentation from the NDRC, the National Development and Reform Commission, I'd like to welcome to the stage the Deputy Director from the Economic Operation Bureau for Transport and Logistics from NDRC, Mr. Liu Silong.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I've been in Western China for quite some time, so I am a little nervous about speaking in front of a large crowd and being in such a luxury environment. This is the second time I'd attended this conference. I attended this conference for the first time 2 years ago. The impression of this conference, my impression about this conference is that it's getting more and more open and more richer and richer in content. So this conference has been held for more than 7 to 8 times. I think it's a testimony to the dedications by the organizers. It also shows that the auto industry in China is growing more and more matured. So I would like to offer my advanced congratulations to the organizers on the success of this conference. Mr. Tsai has just shared with us his personal observations on the macroeconomic growth in China. And he also pointed out the way in which the distribution industries in China should go. The participants to this conference are all the logistic experts or entrepreneurs, so I will skip the introduction of the background information about the logistic industry in China. I would like to talk a little bit about this One Belt, One Road strategies. I think openness, cooperations, and win-win are some of the principles we upheld hard. And also, I would like to tell you some of the things the government departments or agencies would like to do in the next couple of months. And also, I would like to talk a little about the future direction of the logistic industries in the next couple of years. Well, 2015 marks the 37th anniversary of the adoption of the reform opening up policies in China. So in the past 37 years, the Chinese economy transformed from a planned economy to a market-based economy, and the GDP, the average growth rate is more than 9%, and the per capita income in China also increased by several 100%. These are eye-catching achievements. The key to the success is the persistence in opening up the Chinese economy and Chinese industry. We can see a very slow recovery of the world economy, and the growth rate of the Chinese GDP also dropped to 7% also. Indeed, we're moving into a very complicated territory. It is in difficult times that we must stick to openness. We must open economies to the rest of the world. to embody to embrace the diversity of the world economy, and also we need to uphold the principle of openness to the domestic market to activate the intelligence, the creativities, the labors, and the Chinese market. The One Belt, One Road strategies, as well as the Yangtze River Delta development strategies, and the strategies to establish pilot free trade zones are some of the examples of the Chinese government's commitment to openness and international cooperation. I think the same principle applies to the logistic industry as well. After so many years of development and growth, quite a number of logistic companies in China assume the capabilities of reaching out into international market. And also the domestic logistic companies needs the international capitals to activate and stimulate the domestic market. So probably in the future, the government policies will continue to favor and encourage international cooperation. And the Chinese policies will be committed to the establishment of a more open, more transparent, and more cooperative logistic market in China, so that both domestic as well as international companies can compete with each other on a level playing ground. So the message I'm going to convey to you is that the logistic market in China will be more and more open, more and more compliant, as well as transparent and stable in the future. Secondly, I'm going to tell you some of the short-term work the government is going to do to promote the growth of the logistic industry in China. Last September, the State Council released documents about the mid and long-term development strategies for the logistic market in China. Well, this strategy covers from 2015 to 2020. And this document points out the future directions for the development of the logistic industry in China and made proper arrangements for the future policy instruments. So after the release of that document, the NDRC released a document on a plan for the development of the logistic industry in China. And the plan covers the time span from 2014 to 2016. So it's a 3-year plan. In terms of master planning, I think we're going to release a couple of master plans in the short term, including emergency logistic development, e-commerce distribution master plans, the cotton distribution master plan, and a standardized mid and long-term development master plan. Well, the NDRC has already issued a document called the Guidance on the Development of the Logistic Industries, and also the NDRC has released a document titled the Guidance on the Development of the Cold Chain Industry in China. The Ministry of Commerce released a document called the Guidance on the Development of Ports and Harbors in China. The postal office, in the light of the development of the couriers industry, also released documents to guide the development of this specific industry. NDRC earmarked billions of RMB to support the establishment of the infrastructure for the growth of the distribution industry. The Bureau of Energy in China also made substantial investment on some island pipe infrastructures, and also the related competent government authorities are making investigations into the possibility of introducing private investment into the building of airports. The Bureau of Grains also made a lot of investment in the storage capacities and storage qualities for grains. We're talking about creating a favorable regulatory environment for the development of the logistic industry. The Ministry of Transportation, as well as the Ministry of Public Securities, jointly released the documents on the promotion of the logistic industries. The Ministry of Constructions, Real Estate also released documents on the economical use of national land. The Ministry of National Land is also making investigations and is studying new policy tools and instruments on the promotion of the economic use of the land. So the general trend is that the favorable policies will be weeded out in the future, but I think the government will continue to provide some favorable policies for the logistic companies. The General Administration of Industry and Commerce is taking a look at the possibility of streamlining some of the regulatory and administrative procedures. And this is in line with the requirements from the Chinese Premier League. The financial authorities in China are working on the new financial models and financial policy tools to support the growth of the logistic industry, the AQSIQ, as well as the customs in China are working on the facilitation of e-commerce, e-clearance, e-declarations, and so on and so forth. Many pilot projects will be launched in the future. The NDRC will launch some pilot projects on the distribution centers and multimodal distribution, so on and so forth. The MII Ministry of Industry and Information is studying on the development of a platforms for the third-party logistic providers. The Ministry of Commerce is working with the Chinese railroad companies on the multimodal transportation connecting railway and port.
In terms of logistics standards, the NDRC is working very actively with some relevant organizations on this issue. Last year, 8 proposal plans to amend the current logistics standards have been promulgated, and the National Standardization Committee is working together with NDRC for the Commercial Code Standardization Initiative. This is also part of the plan. The Agriculture Department of China is also having their own version of new standards setting initiative over many specific areas, including poultry, eggs, and some other agrarian products. The industry, the MII, or the Ministry of Information Industry, is having their own version of new standards mapping up. The MOE, Ministry of Education, has also their own plan to map out the future plans to standardize and regulate the logistics disciplines or majors in the institutions of higher learning of logistics nature. So I didn't want to enumerate all these standards one after another, but anyway, that gives you a rough picture or general overview of what the relevant national organizations are doing in these regards. So the main point of my speech is that for the next few years, we are going to do a lot with logistics growth, especially rapid growth over the course of the last few years. Our market is growing, is getting more and more mature. So at this critical juncture, our consensus for the logistics industry is to let the market have its final say and play its pivotal role. So for the next step, the first and foremost thing for us to do is that the government needs to minimize its impacts and influence upon those nitty-gritty issues, and they need to work primarily on those infrastructure building issues and to ensure that everybody can compete with each other on a fair and equitable and equal ground. This is very important. From my personal perspective, I feel that probably the next 5 areas are the areas in which we can see major moves. First, to comprehensively implement the mid and long-term plan for the logistics growth of China. So that's the main framework document that everybody needs to abide by. We always say that the plans in the past turn out to be quite useless because it only rests on its paper. So from next year onward, all the documents and all the government files need to be implemented. We all need the support from relevant organizations to ensure the comprehensive implementation on all fronts. For the implementation, I think we should be more effective than ever before. In order to deliver its smooth implementation, the ministerial meeting of logistics industry have revised or amended its prospectus. So originally we have a yearly meeting or annual meeting, but now we have enhanced the frequency of a meeting to about once every 2 months. And different shareholders will play host each time, meaning all relevant departments and administrations at the national level need to show up and play host and rotate their hostship each time. So the purpose of doing so is to ensure that all the relevant leaders need to be sensitized to the severity of the issue and to ensure that everything should be done to make it happen and make it a great success. So far, two meetings were held. The result is quite good. Each time, no matter who is the host of a meeting, so that particular host department will see to it that all relevant things and issues should be addressed properly. And the target will also be spelled in much more detail to each and every division level or office level of officials for such detailed issues like the establishment of some special organizations governing the logistic industry and the standards setting initiative have been pushing ahead quite smoothly. I think that the national level logistics ministerial meeting mechanism will play its pivotal role in the future. Secondly, to further reinforce the efforts for the infrastructure building, especially for the logistics industry, to form the main framework and structure to undertake the future tasks. In the mid and central and western part of China, more railways need to be built, and also efforts should be made to give more play to the roles undertaken by the Pearl River and the Xijiang River and some other important river areas and delta areas. And also, different types of transportation means need to be connected with each other more seamlessly. Priority will be given to expressway transportation and highway transportation. Some local or regional transportation hub need to be constructed. Some multimodal ways of transportation will be the future priority, and standards setting, process standardization efforts will also be quite important in that particular area. More efforts will be, more encouragement will be given to the direct link and transportation over the rivers and canals in China. Over the operational management efficiency, we will give full play to the intelligent and smart way of navigation and transportation. The cross-regional, cross-industry, cross-departmental logistics information platform will be constructed to facilitate information sharing and communication and exchange of relevant data. So this is important to ensure that the standardized and regulated market could be put into place. Thirdly, the one road, one belt policy is important. This is the national strategy. We will do our utmost to provide our strong support to this one road, one belt strategy. For one belt, one road, the logistics hubs linking China and the Eastern Asia, southern part of Asia, and the central part of Asia will be an important job. The logistics infrastructure connectivity and information sharing system should also be put into place. Over the Yangtze River Delta area, we will give full play to this so-called Golden Water Canal to construct and a good environment for the transfer of industry mix and to link more effectively the economic clusters between the west and east in China. In Beijing, Tianjin, Hebei Delta region, we will work to ensure that the integrated commercial and trade zone will be established. Fourthly, we should build a unified market system with a fair competition. First of all, I think we need to streamline the government bureaucracies and delegate more power to the grassroots. Secondly, we need to exercise more power and to enhance the market monitoring and supervision. For the streamlining of a bureaucracy and delegating of power, mainly, I mean, we need to eliminate those unnecessary procedures for administrative examinations and approvals We need to optimize the examination procedure to enhance its efficiency. For the logistics market, we need to work more on the negative list management. For the government, we will exercise the positive list control or restriction of the government functions. And also, the examination approval system need to be further optimized to a so-called registration system, and more control will be exercised over the entire process. Last year, NDRC has issued a document and a decree to ensure that the entire society should be based upon a credit system. So far, we have got some money from NDRC working on the so-called Credit China network. Right now, quite a number of organizations at the national level are now integrated into this network. The next step, we are going to do more for information sourcing, information sharing, and information common integration. We need to really mobilize every efforts to ensure that information can talk to each other. Different information centers need to be integrated to put all information from whatever credit sourcing institutions on one same platform. Also, in the future, there should be an integrated punishing system for those non-performers or poor performers. Also, there will be some new ways of managing the logistics industry from the credit system. For those credit abiders, we should give them a go-ahead and give more green lights. But for those non-performers or lawbreakers, warning signals will be sent. And these lawbreakers or credit breakers will have to pay a hell lot of cost to cover their wrongdoings. Of course, the prerequisite is to ensure that the supervisory watchdogs of the government need to be trustworthy and also be the role models of a credit integration. So this is something that we are going to do in the future. Currently, I think that the feedbacks and also the evaluations and assessments of the findings of the past few years are basically put into place to ensure we do not do only lip service to answer to the needs of our society. Fifthly, the fifth big picture is to establish a platform for e-commerce. E-commerce will be another new big pillar to support our future growth. Premier Li mentioned over many occasions the importance of e-commerce. I think that it is not only relevant to the tertiary industry, but also relevant to all the industries. Their business models and mentalities will have to undergo transformations at the fundamental level. The e-commerce growth cannot go without the support from the logistics industry, but what can be done to ensure that our logistics sector can play its due role to support its e-commerce and vice versa? So this is what the government needs to do for the next step. Recently, you see that China's accounting industry is also developing by leaps and bounds. in which we have. Okay, the express delivery industry is also developing by leaps and bounds. But in the whole process, we have seen some irregularities or unique disformities, so we need to do something to address this issue. The transnational or trans-border business growth is also becoming a new pillar. But there are some issues, including the non-adaptabilities or non-integratabilities. So these are all the issues we need to face squarely. Well, these are the 5 areas I will share with you in much more detail. This is not only relevant to the national strategy at the bigger picture, but also quite relevant to the future growth as a main trend. I think that the departments and administrations at the national level will treat it as a key priority. The key theme of this conference is automotive logistics, but pitifully I don't mention too much about the automotive logistics to be more specific. But almost all the aspects I've mentioned are all related to automotive logistics. For special or professional logistics sector, it is also attracting more and more attention. Automotive logistics is also one of the stars in the past few years out of the so-called professional or the special logistics area. Looking ahead into the next few years, I think that we have many mechanisms in place, including the ministerial meeting. So we will do everything we can to minimize the interference of the government to ensure its future growth. My attitude here is that continuous efforts will be made to mobilize, to make full use of our policies, to lend a helping hand to a better, more sound, more orderly, much opener, and more transparent growth of automotive logistics. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Liu Xilong, for sharing the government ideas and reforms and what they are doing to support and make sure that the automotive and logistics industries develop in the correct way. Next up, to represent the customer. Everything we do here is to make sure that the people who buy the cars are happy and we can support them. So to get a understanding from their side, I'd like to welcome Xiao Shengsan, the General Secretary of the Chinese Automobile Dealer Association. Thank you.
Ladies and
gentlemen, dear friends, good morning. It is my great pleasure, at the invitation of the organizing committee, to attend this conference. And also, it is my great pleasure to share my opinions with you. Before I begin, I want to open my PPT because I didn't prepare a word script. So here I want to approach my topic from the following 3 aspects. Firstly, the key links or the key dates or milestones of the growth of the auto market. Secondly, the major judgment or the predictions of the market. Thirdly, the challenges and opportunities for the circulation industry. We know that into this new century, the automobile market and auto industry has been developing rapidly. In the whole process, despite the financial crisis at the global level, and also despite the fact that the international economy is not developing so rapidly, in addition to the macro control and regulation of the Chinese government, still, China's auto industry maintains its rapid growth by achieving a proven record of progress. Also, we have the Chinese auto market has risen to become one of the biggest markets in the world. And also the Chinese auto market becomes the market that everybody began to focus primarily on. But in the whole process, we have to bear in mind some of the key links and stones.
Because these are the important historic moments that record some of the important milestones the auto industry has achieved in the 21st century. Let's take a look at this PPT page.
进入世纪之交的2000年，我们中国汽车产销量大概在209万辆。
In year 2000, the production volume of automotives in China is about 2.09 million. In 1953, China produced the first car as a result of 50 years of endeavor. The production volume reached 2 million in 2000. In year 2000, this is a remarkable historic milestone. In 2001, the production and sales volume of vehicles in China reached 2.326 million and 2.337 million respectively. The increase rate was about 10%. In 2005, two pieces of important laws and regulations were issued in China governing the sales of new cars or branded new cars in China and the sales of used cars in China. Another milestone was reached in 2008. 2008 was very special because of the outbreak of financial crisis in a worldwide context. And in 2008, the production and sales volume of vehicles in China was 9.345 million and 9.38 million, respectively. In 2009, in order to face the challenges of a world financial crisis, the Chinese government issued a document to support the growth of 10 pillar industries in China, the auto industry being one of them. That's why in 2009 the production and sales volume of vehicles in China reached 13.791 million and 13.645 million. 2009 was very important because not only the production volume but also the sales volume of the vehicles in China exceeded 10 million. And in 2013, the production volume as well as the sales volume of vehicles in China had exceeded 20 million. Last year, for 6 consecutive years, China ranked number 1 in the world in terms of production volume and sales volume of vehicles. In the past 15 years, the production volume of vehicles in China grew from 2 million to 13 million. So that's about 12 times growth in the past 15 years, which is truly remarkable and impressive. This ultra high-speed growth of the auto industries in China turns China into one of the big automotive manufacturers. And also, this achievement is impossible without your contribution.
中国汽车产业发展在这个一些比较关键的一个时段。那么，昨天我进入到这个酒店的时候，参加我们会议，我所见到的第一个国际友人。
Yeah, yesterday when I came to this hotel,
我们的
the first
汽车物流路易斯，
foreigners I met
他给我问的
was
第一个问题
Mr. Louis Yakumi.
就是说，中国的汽车流通
The first question he raised
经销商
to me
日子好不好过？
was that whether the dealers and distributors of vehicles in China are having a good time or not.
流通企业或者叫经销商。
I thanked him very much for his caring for the distribution industries in China, as well as for his caring for the dealers in China.
肯定与我们整个汽车市场
Whether the dealers are having a good time or not
趋势好坏，或者叫做景气度好坏。
is closely related to the fundamentals of the auto industry. If the auto industry is in very good shape, the dealers are making good money, and if the market is sluggish and the demand is low, the dealers probably will have a very difficult time.
我们的这样一个汽车行情到底怎么样？
So,
这几个方面给大家做一个交流。
what is the status quo of the auto industry, auto market in China?
我国汽车这个累计销售
In year 2014,
2349.69万辆，这个2349万辆，同比增长了6%。
the aggregated sales volume of vehicles in China is 23.49 million, an increase of 6.86% over the same period of the year before.
低于了我们去年国民经济增长。
So the 6.86% growth rate is less than the average GDP growth rate, which was 7.4% last year.
市场的增长速度是拖了我们整个国民经济发展的一个后腿。那么这是
Well, meaning the auto industry's growth rate was below the national economic growth rate.
那么二手车在2014年是怎么一个表现？
Talking about the used car,
据我们中国汽车流通协会
in
对全国500多家重点二手车交易市场的监测，
according to our surveys on the 500 used cars markets in China last year, in 2004 the transaction volume was
高于了我们新车。
6 million. The growth rate is
但
21%.
是呢，我为什么讲一个重点监测是这么一个情况？现在我们商务部委托我们要做一个全国的二手车交易。
Well, the Ministry of Commerce has trusted us with the task of monitoring the transaction volumes of all the used cars markets in China. Actually, that 500 used car markets represent 70 to 80% of the national total.
零星小市场
There are still small markets that have not been covered by our previous survey and investigations. We're reaching out to these small markets so that a more complete statistics will be released in June this year.
900万辆。
But according to our rough estimate, in 2014, the total
那么从
transaction volume of used cars is 9 million.
表现情况。那么今年1到3月份，也就是一季度，
In Q1 this
我国
year,
汽车这个产销情况大概是这么一个情况啊。
the production volume of vehicles in China is 6.2 million,
5.3
and the sales volume of vehicles in Q1 2005 is 6.15 million, registering a growth rate of 5.3% and 3.9% respectively compared to the same period of last year. So these statistics
我想要基于以下几
do
个方
not
面。
provide us with a very optimistic picture of the auto industry in China.
第一，
What is that?
就是宏观经济的下行，
First of all, we're still facing a downward pressure
增长
on the macroeconomic growth,
明显。怎么说
which is
呢？
a negative factor to the development of the auto industry in China.
2012年
Starting from 2012,
增长速度，我们的 GDP 增长速度已经逐步放缓了。这个7
the GDP growth rate in China started to drop to 8 to 7%. Last year, the GDP growth rate was 7.4%, and this year's GDP growth target is only 7%.
经济在下行这个压力是比较，就是说这个压力还是比较大的。
Meaning that there is still heavy downward pressure on the GDP growth. There are a lot of uncertainties in the world economy. I don't think I need to talk too much about this point because the previous two speakers have already elaborated on this point. Anyway, auto industry is a pillar industry in China, so it is closely related to the macroeconomic development. Let's take a look at the PMI. The PMI is just around 50. It shows that the Chinese economy is still pretty weak. It's stabilized a little bit and it's moving toward a better trend. So the general conclusion is that since the auto industry is closely related to the macroeconomic performance, the slowing down of the Chinese economy will be detrimental to the demand for vehicle products in China. The local government policies will also have strong influence on the auto industry. The Chinese society is becoming a auto society. It caused many problems to energy, safety and securities, environment protections, road infrastructures, and so forth. In 2010, Beijing became the first cities in China that issued restrictive policies on auto purchase. And many cities in China followed suit afterwards. These policies are quite destructive to the auto industry development. And most of these restrictive policies are from the Tier 1 or other key cities in China, which are the most important markets for the auto industries. These restrictive policies are definitely detrimental to the demand, and it impairs the right of the consumers to purchase vehicles and use vehicles. According to the monthly released statistics from the Statistics Bureau, well, the growth rate in auto consumption and vehicle consumption is less than the growth rate of the retail revenues. So the retail revenue growth rate is represented by the red line on this chart. It's far below the 12% of the national average of the growth rate of the retail sales revenue.
刚才讲的是政策层面，那么我们从我们的经销商这个经营情况，
If you take a closer look at our auto dealers,
那么要讲经销商，这个我们也是要从去年这个一些实际的情况来看。
let's take a look at what happened last year.
每一个月都会对我们的新车库存系数和库存预警指数做2次发布活动。
Well, the CADA will monthly release two important index. One is the auto inventory index. The other is auto inventory warning level index.
大家对市场的这个看法并不乐观的，占了67.5%。
67.5% of the dealers are not very optimistic about the auto industry and auto market.
我们这个库存预警指数跟我们的 PMI 这个刚好是两个相反的一个理解。我们是什么？高于10%， 表示市场在收窄。
Our inventory warning index is just the opposite to the PMI. Let's say if the auto inventory warning index is higher than 50%, meaning the market is shrinking.
所以，中国汽车零工这样一个行情或者这个市场的行情的走势并不乐观。
So the auto distribution industry is not in a very good shape, and the forecast is quite gloomy.
那么，这是一个刚才讲的这个是一个我们整个汽车零工行业的库存情况反映出来的。那么从我们这个汽车零工行业的一些
Apart from the inventory, if we take a look at the sales revenue of the leading distributors, auto distributors in China, we can see that there are 8 leading auto distributors in China that enjoyed more than 10% of sales revenue growth last year. But for most of the dealers, the growth rate was only 5% last year. As to the profitability, well, many publicly listed dealer group suffered from a decrease in the profitability or the profit. And the sales revenue increased while the profit decreased. What is that? Because most of the dealers would have to tune down the retail price of the vehicles in exchange for a higher sales volume and turnover rate. This is the turnover rate of inventory. The turnover rate is getting higher and higher. The production and the sales and distribution systems in China has not been changed in line with the development of the auto market. So according to the current systems, the distributors and dealers are obviously in disadvantaged positions compared to the manufacturers of the automotives. The dealers would have to take in all the production volumes from the manufacturers. If the market is in very good shape, there is a little tension between the dealers and the manufacturers. But if the market is shrinking, if the demand is decreasing, there will be a mounting tension between the manufacturers and the distributors.
那么整个是不是真正的实现了销售呢？我看不完全，因为有一部分库存是压到了我们的经销商面的。那么从去年我们所得到的调研情况看呢，
According to our investigation last year,
70%的企业处于亏损的边缘，
70% of the dealers
30%的企业在里面。那么超正常亏损范围，
were at the fringe of a loss-making scenario, while only 30% of the dealers enjoyed a positive profit.
超正常亏损所挣来的资金全国在1000个亿左右，那么这是一个非常大的一个数据。
Currently, there is a huge inventories of the vehicles in China on the distributors' network.
So that will result in over-inventory and increasing cost of operation, and it will reduce the efficiency and the performance of operation. So this will do no good to either side, and it will intensify the tension between the two aspects. So I here want to tell Mr. Lewis that we dealers are really having a hard time, no matter what it is, being high inventory or the production chain issue or the ecosystem is getting worse. So this year, we expect to see much more frequent reportage about these issues. I hope that this year will be better. So that's the basic judgment of the auto market in China. So having said all that, we have touched a lot about the macro policies, the dealers' situation. This is the summary of the opinions so far. So far, our auto market has bid farewell to the high growth era, and the buyer's market has already come into shape. Originally, it's the seller's market, but now it's the buyer's market. Originally, we have a big fortune to make, but now probably things will be quite different. And the market is also getting more mature. In terms of the driving force behind the market, I think it is largely because of two things, or two wheels. One is newly generated demands and the new demands for the second-hand cars or the used cars replacement. So these are the two main areas in which we expect to see more growth. The sales restriction policy can be more keenly felt in those tier 1 and tier 2 cities. So that gives more room to the second-hand cars. So each year, 23 million new cars will have to be resolved through these two driving wheels. But in order to ensure orderly and equal growth, I think that it has to be coupled with another two wheels. In addition to these two wheels, we have another two wheels called financial leverage driving force and the national policy incentive to accelerate the forced obsolescence of cars. Otherwise, it will become a quake lake. So on the upstream, we see more and more cars coming in, but in the downstream, no car can be expected to go. So that will create a situation called quake lake. It will become a stagnated situation. The so-called auto financing sector is very important for those developed and mature markets in the world, including America, including Europe. They have experienced a long period of growth. But what is their method? or what is their plan? They resort mainly to the mortgage payments, to the financing, rentals, and some other types of auto financing strategies. It is not because they are rich, it is because they have a lot of financial derivatives to ensure they can incentivize the economy. 85% of the cars in America and in Europe are all sourced through auto financing schemes. And in China, the figure is much lower, only 14%. So we are only about a tiny proportion of the figure as we see in the West. In the past, we always have the tradition to really buy everything using cash or using full payment. But in the West, it's another story. But if we can really change our mindset, I think this will be something good for us. So we should pay critical attention and equal attention not only to new car sales, but also to auto financing sales. Also, I want to say that forced obsolescence is very important. If the country does not has any supporting policies to encourage obsolescence or planned obsolescence, things will become even worse. Sometimes, the cars running on the streets are no longer green, no longer environmentally friendly, no longer doing any good to the environment or to human health. So the government needs to do a lot to set up a list in which some categories of cars need to be forced to be out of market in due course. And also some incentive policies which have to put into place to encourage the recycling of those end-of-life vehicles or ELVs and some other different types of cars. Only by being driven by these four wheels can we ensure more growth. So the third part of my speech is the opportunities and the challenges facing the companies. First of all, policy level. We have launched a series of policies since last July. The government has already strengthened their efforts to implement the laws and the regulations, including the anti-monopoly law and anti-syndicate law and antitrust law. And last September, you can also see that the General Administration of Industry and Commerce has also cancelled the registration system for the general dealerships of car brands, meaning no matter who is willing to operate their brands, so long as you have money, you can go into this business. So that has intensified the current competition of the current dealership. It's presenting new challenges at the same time as well. The brand operation and management method has also undergone some new changes. The final version is yet to come out. That is to say, we have always been waiting for the final version to come out. This is important for the dealers. When it will come out, how it will come out. So the market is full of expectations for that. We hope the sooner the better. So for this document, it has been shifted to the selling document by revoking the so-called brand franchise term. I do not have to be franchised in order to run a brand. So that means we have basically cancelled all the thresholds for any car brand operators in the future. And also the third-party maintenance document method has also come out.
对我们整个维修的目前说的这个封闭性的这个独立的工艺系统啊。
This can also be a huge change to the current spare parts and accessories market that seems to be quite closed to the public and also quite closed loop way of circulation. I think that different companies may have their own strategies and advantages and a technological know-how to compete with other current players. And hopefully in the future the maintenance cost will be down and the quality will not be down. I think it will also pose a great challenge to the forest dealerships. And also for the new energy cars, the country is also working actively to give more subsidies and give more support to the new energy cars. For the 3C, especially for the after-sales market, more challenges and opportunities the same. If you can do better in this area, I think it will be an opportunity for you. But if you cannot do better, well, you can get a lot of complaints. And also the state or the national standards for the second-hand cars will come out soon under CARDA. I think this will also be a great stabilizer of the market confidence of the consumers. This will be delivering its huge impact and influence on the whole industry. We hoped in the future there will be a fair market with fair competition by protecting more rigorously the legitimate rights and interests of the consumers and to further unleash the vigor and vitality of the whole industry. It can also do a lot to ensure the diversification of different forms of the business. Our market and our industry will be really having a great future if we have all the policies together. Secondly, for the new products and the new technologies, I think both of these new things will effect some market structural change. The Ministry of Science and Technology, or MOST, has its own version of launching around 500,000 new energy cars. Considering the big population in China, it's a small figure, I think, but for the dealers, I think we should treat this small figure as something important because that represents a good opportunity at its very start, because that also represents the future trend of the national policy. So if you turn a blind eye to it, I don't think you will bode very well. The third challenge comes from Internet Plus. Especially for the auto industry, if you put Internet plus auto industry, that will be a big opportunity. So you can see a lot of active online opportunities and transactions have been going on there on Taobao, Tmall, and some other platforms or online platforms for the auctioning and the selling and the purchasing of second-hand cars. Everything has been based on the logistics on the internet. It has also been impacting almost all the aspects of our daily life. So I think for our real industry, it's a big impact. It's a big flow. It's a big blow, but at the same time, we should not be feared by this big flow, or by this big blow. The e-commerce operators and the players will change the mentality of the traditional voice dealerships. Either the users or the service providers will have to reconsider what is the future way out.
因为我们可以看到，互联网其实是发源来自于美国的百年的赛
The internet comes from America, but still you can see a lot of time-honored, century-long-old voice dealerships there. Indeed, internet is having its impact across the board, but still you do not see the bankruptcy of these 4 dealerships in America, so we should be full of confidence about that.
因为从目前看，这个电商它不
At the current being,
的特殊性，它不可能出现像这
it's unlikely for the auto e-commerce operators to pattern after the same style as you can see for those household appliances. But anyway, it will change the traditional way of operation. We have to be cautious enough to be aware, to be wary of the future challenges.
但是我们应该怎么做？也就是说，
But what can be done for us?
即刻的做。大部分的
Currently, the
交易
e-commerce operators are all geeks.
实体企业
But these physical shops will play its irreplaceable role because the customers need to test their cars, to see the cars in real eyes,
这个三包体现
and also for the 3C to be implemented in full, they have to approach the brick-and-mortar shops to seek any help and assistance.
有憧憬，但是
So on one hand, indeed, impacts. On the other hand, nothing and no reason to be feared.
我们应该要做好互补。
But we need to ensure complementarity between the two.
电商来搞好一种优势联合
Integration will be needed,
叫做跨界
or
发挥各自
cross-disciplinary integration is highly recommended
4S 店功能发挥。
to ensure we give full play to the functions of the 4
这
dealerships.
应该是就是从目前看，我们可能
So I think we need to establish some connective links between the traditional ones and those non-traditional ones.
这样子以公民来发展，也就是说现在说的 O2O 的模式，
It's becoming an O2O model.
我们实体店最好的一些
That's also the best way we can do.
所以说我们要关注。
Having said so much, this is my conclusion finally.
不光是有问题，但是它有很多的机遇。
As I said, we have opportunities and the challenges. Challenges and the opportunities coexist. I want to add a few more things here. The government needs to develop their own GDP. The people needs to improve their own livelihood. The purchasing power needs to be up. On the other hand, the urbanization is gaining its speed. What should be coming first? That's automotive industry. So still the market is huge. The dealers need to experience a new round of transformation or upgrading, shifting from a seller to an operator. The sales target is no longer a target that we have to specifically address. On the other hand, we have to treat our customers very well.
当然，这是你说的，我们不把功夫打，但是这是一个主要的方向。谁抓住了用户，
So those who can win the hearts of the customers will win the market.
应该是表示用户。同时要做好跨界的。
As I said, the cross-sectoral integration is very important by linking both the upstream and the downstream industries. I hope it will create a new type of win-win situation between the two. The manufacturers need to adjust their production plans. They will give more subsidies and preferential policies to the dealers to enhance their competitiveness so that the dealers will be more than willing to work for the manufacturer, to work with the manufacturer to sell more cars. So this is a bilateral interaction. Only by doing so can we ensure sustainable and rapid growth. And only by doing so can we ensure giving real play to the potential of the logistics market. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Xiao. Obviously, we're overrunning a little bit, but we will have, the final presentation. But on the other hand, the reason I said to Mr. Xiao Zhengshan yesterday my concern about the Chinese automotive dealers is because if the Chinese automotive dealers aren't selling the cars, then everything everyone else does in this room is a complete waste of time. So next up, the final speaker of the morning, I'd like to welcome Jin Jun, partner from PwC Management Consulting. Thank you. Thank you. Sorry.
各位上午好。那我接下来非常感谢啊，首先那个。
So first of all, I would like to offer my thanks to Mr. Tsai, Mr. Liu, and Mr. Xiao for their sharing of their interpretation of the auto industry-related government policies. Well, the theme of this conference is from big to strong. Yes, indeed, China is a big auto manufacturer and a big dealer of vehicles. But are we strong enough? I would like to use the next 15 to 20 minutes to share with you some of the findings from a investigative report from an investigation we conducted in 2014. And I hope that this report will be conducive to the development of the auto distribution industry in China. Talking about the connected cars, talking about the concept of connected cars. Indeed, connected cars is just a part of the Internet of Things. Indeed, this report covers passengers' cars. We're trying to understand the behavior of the passengers' cars, the future trend of passengers' cars industry and market. We're going to talk about some main factors, including how to apply the e-commerce to the connected cars. So how to develop the business models for these connected cars by manufacturers, distributors. And also we'll talk a little bit about the big data, data securities, and their promotion to the development of this industry. Point number one, let's take a look at the some of the characteristics of the connected cars in a global context. We can also witness these characteristics in the auto market in China. These major trends include, first of all, we can see that a lot of electronics manufacturers and companies reached out into the auto industries. They bringing the internet mentality into the auto industries, including Google, Amazon, and Apple companies. In China, the major three internet companies have announced their investment plans into the auto industries. So electronics industries is blending with the auto industry. Secondly, we can see that there is a growing acceptance of electronic vehicles in China. The government policies are quite favorable to e-vehicles. The Chinese government's policies are quite supportive to the development of the e-cars industries. The third trend is that there's more focus on the right to use a car instead of the right to possess a car. So I think the concept of the sharing of vehicles will be accepted in the future. We're more concerned about enhancing the customer's experience and to increase the transportation efficiencies. So there's a lot of talking about sharing or auto sharing in the Chinese market. The fourth trend is that well, most of the growth in the auto industry will come from brick markets or emerging markets. And these emerging markets will become the driving force of the auto industries. And these emerging markets or brick markets will become very critical to the automakers. We estimate that more than 50% of the manufacturing capacities will come from the BRICS markets. And these markets are willing to use new technologies and apply internet mentalities to the building of the vehicles. And the fifth trend is that personalized usage-based and full-service leasing and insurance packages will be available in the market. The last trend is that autonomous driving is on the rise. Well, the concept was a little vague a couple of years ago, but now it is getting more and more clear in front of us. So all these trends point to a general conclusion, which is the internet technologies will have a direct and important impact upon the auto industry. Now, there are 7 types of demand. The first one is mobility management, the second is vehicle management, the third category is entertainment, the fourth is well-being, the fifth is autonomous driving, the sixth needs or demand is safety, the seventh demand is home integration. Within these general categorizations of connected car demand, we made a forecast in this report. In 2015, the market size is about 32 billion euro worth of demand for connected car technologies. In 2020, we believe that the demand for a connected car technologies will reach 110 billion euros. If we divide this demand into the 7 categories of demands or needs, we'll be able to see that the primary demand will be coming from the category safety and the category of autonomous driving. So the safety related and the autonomous driving related technologies will be the key technologies in the connected car technology portfolio. Yes, indeed, safety and autonomous driving are 2 main areas that drives the development of the connected car technologies. We shouldn't neglect other demands from other categories like entertainment, connectivity, home integrations, so on and so forth. These are experience-based technologies. So So definitely, this is the area where we should pay critical attention to.
那我们下面就提到的是说，既然有这么多的一些机会和这么多的一些趋势，
There are numerous opportunities and trends.
提到的一个很关键点就是
So
说，
how to go for the technology, how to go for this market?
必须是这方面的一个重要的一个驱动
I would like to say that the OEMs are a primary driving force behind this industry. OEM has a critical role to play in this connected car industry. There are two links. One is B2C, the other is B2B2C. We need the exchange of big data to realize the functions in this area. The other market is B2B business, in insurance, advertisement, after sales, leasing, the sharing of information. These services can be provided on a platforms upon which the big data can be exchanged.
整个一个环节的价值链构成。那下面呢，就是我们刚才讲的整个一个用户需求的一个划分。那么下面呢，我们也对于整个一个电子商务在互联网这个产业当中的一些划分呢，也进行了一个预测。那么我们这个预测呢，
This is a division of e-commerce.
那么这个预测里呢，核心
We made a forecast from 2015 to 2020. If you take a look at the development of the e-commerce within the auto industries, currently the e-commerce market size is about 830 million euros. But in 2020, this number will rise to 14.2 billion euros. The compound annual growth rate is 76%. The e-commerce within the auto industries provides different kind of services, including the intermodal mobility service, mobility as a service, travel-related value-added services, and so on and so forth.
这三类呢，也是未来增长最快的市场新兴环节。那么下面呢，我们也刚刚已经讲到很多，就是说在整个一个新兴的这个电商的这个生态系统，这个生态系统可能跟我们过去讲的传统的汽车产业链
These e-business systems within the auto industries will deliver a strong impact upon the traditional ecosystems of the auto industry.
可以讲我们制造企业，可以讲我们经销商，可以讲我们下游区的金融，但是在新的产业链
In the old model, the major players are the manufacturers, dealers, insurance providers, and so forth. But in the new business models, many new players will come in, totally breaking the traditional systems. The OEMs definitely still plays a critical role in this system because the OEMs still dominates the design of the model, the manufacturing of the whole vehicles, the management of the whole systems, so on and so forth. There are many internet companies. While they are developing their own internet vehicles, they're working with the big OEMs at the same times. So we still believe that the OEMs will play a manager's role in this ecosystem.
所有的这些创新的意识和想法，它必须突破我们整个一个实施，才能够真正的起到作用。这里我们就提到一个叫 ways to play 的这么一个概念。
So we come up with a ways to play concept. We need to understand the market demand. We need to turn the creativity into marketable values. We need to find the appropriate ways to insert the value propositions in the minds of the customers.
那最后呢，可能我们在讲车联网，在讲它的一个未来的一个发展趋势的时候呢，我们也必须要提到。
Talking about connected cars and its future trends, there are many key points for consideration.
全
And there is a lot of thinking on these key points. Information security is one key point. Well, Internet of Crime, meaning that we should develop the capabilities to monitor the data and informations from the vehicles in real time. And if we detect some abnormalities, we should be able to provide a diagnostic report as quickly as possible. Apart from information security issues, there's another important issue which is called compliance. Within the category of compliance, there were three key points. First of all, we might be able to collect a lot of location-based informations. So can we protect the privacies of the automotive users? Secondly, who is responsible in terms of data privacy regulations? And thirdly, is autonomous driving compliant with traffic laws? Because autonomous driving totally revolutionized the traditional way of driving. Okay, these are just the summarize of this report. If you're interested in the details of this report, I'll be able to provide you with more information after the conference. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Junjin, for telling us about the future of the automotive industry. As I said earlier, we've obviously overrun a little bit, but I think the presentations were interesting, so it was good to get the information so early in the conference and gives us a lot to talk about for the rest of the 2 days. I'd like to thank the panel for giving us such a good start to the conference. Thank you.